You're watching Grassroots Community TV, the nation's original community-operated television station, protecting and nurturing open channels of communication for the citizens of the Roaring Fork Valley since 1972.
My name is Frida Wallison, and I'm thank you. I'm the chair of the Pitkin County Republican Party, and this is we have a number of events, as many of you know. We're really thrilled to have this particular event this evening. Before I introduce our speaker, we're doing something. I have a few things to say. We're doing something a little bit different, thanks to one of the members of our audience, Nancy Ferrillo, who said, "Why aren't you taping all of these wonderful events you have?"
She was the lady
and
on the summit.
she was absolutely correct. So we're going to be taping this. We have Grassroots TV back there, Mike Lavker. Hi, Mike. And this will be shown on Grassroots TV, and we will have a link so we can put it up on a website. We can email the link to you, and you can see this. And we're going to do this twice more, at least this season. And that will be on September 6th. We had a wonderful event here at the beginning of the week with a gentleman named Steve Hyde, who is very involved with the healthcare area and has been for 35 years. And the subject of his talk was basically health reform without Obamacare. And it was very interesting. There was a lot of back and forth between Steve and the audience, and we just thought it was so important. We've invited him back. He will be here on September 6th. We'll have a luncheon presentation. Those of you who missed it, please put September 6th on your calendar. We're not sure exactly where we're going to do it at the moment, but we will get the word out. And then on September 12th, from 5:30, so September 6th is a lunch presentation. We will have lunch at an unknown place. And then 5:30 to 7 on September 12th, somebody named Peter Wallison, I never heard of him, is going to speak at the Basalt Public Library, and the top Grassroots will cover that, and we will again make that available to the link for that to whoever would like to have it. This coming Tuesday, August 28th, many of you know that we have a new campaign headquarters in town, and that's at 834 West Hallam Street at the S-Curves. We had a wonderful grand opening. Lots of people showed up, and our volunteers are working. Again, I will mention the volunteer sign-up sheet we have in the back. If any of you would like to sign up to be a volunteer, I see many volunteers in the audience, and we are really grateful to all of you for the time that you are putting into this very important election. But on Tuesday, August 28th, from 3 to 7, we will have an open house. There will be food, beverages, fun discussions, and we urge everybody just to drop by and join us. It's very informal. With those announcements, I would like to move on to the matter of the evening. We are really privileged to have with us tonight Bill Bennett. Secretary Bennett has an illustrious background, having served as a cabinet secretary. He's a fellow at the Claremont Institute. He's an author, a speaker, an analyst for CNN, has a has a morning radio show during the week called Morning in America. And the subject of Bill's talk tonight is Election 2012. And I told him that's big enough so he can speak about anything he likes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frida and Peter Wallison. But the difference between Frida and Peter Wallison is if you're talking about Peter, you have to say Peter Wallison. If you were talking about Frida, you just have to say Frida, like Cher or Madonna or Elvis, right? I have one of those. Elaine, please, please, stand up. She lives at sea level, really, on the Atlantic Ocean, and she summited Ute today after 3 days, so that was pretty good, I think. And my son, John Bennett. John, if you'll stand. I will project. I'm just thinking there's some poor liberal guy in the corner who's about to have a coronary. But such things have never been said in Aspen before. Not true. Frida, you do a wonderful job. It's legendary. I saw Haley Barber, our friend Haley, we ran into him, we were having lunch, and he said, "What are you doing in town?" I said, "I'm doing a secret talk for a secret society." He said, "Frida's got you." Right, that's right. Not so secret. Whatever shall we talk about? Let me talk about the election. I'll just give you my thoughts. I'd welcome your comments. I'd like you to be very responsive and very positive because I do have this radio talk show called Morning in America. There are 5 hosts on the Salem network. It's the best faculty department I have ever been a part of. Dennis Prager and Michael Medved and Hugh Hewitt and Mike Gallagher and myself. Salem decided to cover the conventions. They said, well, everybody can go to Tampa, but we need one person to go to Charlotte. I'm the guy. So, but you know about the Irishman who walks down the street, sees a fight going on, says, "Is this a private fight or can anybody get in on it?" So Elaine, a native of Charlotte, will be with me, and we will be your defense. And we're going to hang out in lobbies and just make people really angry to see us. That's all there is to it. Just like we do in an occasional place in Aspen where people say, "What are you doing here?" It's allowed. I can come here. Anyway, we're delighted. We love Aspen. We've been coming for 25 years? 23 years. And I am slowly going through the 14ers. I've got 33 of them under my belt. Looks like I have them under my belt. And I don't go up them quickly, but I go up them. And when I get there, the mountain knows it's been climbed. Let me start with telling you what I think will happen. I think it'll be a very close election, or Mitt Romney will win big. Oh boy, that's like the presidential seal. Yeah. I think Mitt Romney will win big, or it'll be a very close election. I don't think Barack Obama will. Oh, okay. Okay, you're going to have to come and sit at my feet. I think Mitt Romney will win big, or it will be a very close election. I don't think Barack Obama will win big. The facts, I think, are just too much against him. It's a close race, and in my view, and this is my view clearly, it shouldn't be a close race. The simple reason it shouldn't be a close race is I think this president is wrecking the country in many ways. The economic parts are obvious, and I won't dwell on those because there are much smarter people like Peter Wallison and others in the audience who could talk about that. But the morale of the country is down too. The defense of the country is down. There's a dispiriting in America that's very un-American and very unfortunate. And it's important that Romney win this. The main reason it's close is because the left owns the cultural institutions. And this is a problem for Republicans. Republicans do not understand the importance of the culture. They understand the importance of the economy. Oh, what should I do?
Move to the middle. Just stand right there.
Stand in the middle? All right. Man, is that better? I feel like soupy sales. Anyway, the culture. Someone said once, if you had the choice between running all the corporations, all the banks, all the agencies of government, or having the media, the universities, and the schools, which would you take? You might take the former, but you'd have more power if you took the latter. Plato said there are really only two fundamentally important questions. Who teaches the children, and what do they teach them? And the reason for Barack Obama's continuing popularity, in my view, is because people do not understand what America is. They do not understand what it's about. They do not understand what makes it unique in the history of the world. This is partly my fault. My fault because I'm a teacher and I'm a professor. I have done my best, but I haven't done well enough because most of our young people do not understand very simple distinctions, like the distinction between socialism and free market capitalism. In the most recent poll of people under 25, capitalism won 52-48. That's too close. That's just too close. The most widely read history book in America is Howard Zinn's book, and it is a left-wing diatribe against America. Now that I have that off my chest, it explains a lot. It really does explain a lot, because a lot of people think this is a pretty bad place. Successful, rich, but bad. It needs to be reformed at its core. Barack Obama is one of those people. And there are lots of people who agree with him. Now, his strengths are his ability to speak and perform publicly. He's a good speaker. He's very good politically. He persuades people, and people like him. A lot of people voted for Barack Obama and will vote for him again because they think he's neat and he's cool. He is kind of neat. I suppose he is kind of cool, if you can say that about someone who's destroying the country. But he has a very presentable and agreeable public manner. I'm going to step back because I just... Oh, we do? Good. He is a better performer politically than Mitt Romney. I think Mitt Romney would be a very good president. I think he'd actually be an excellent president. But he's not a great campaigner. He's a better campaigner than John McCain, thank goodness. But he's not a great campaigner. Paul Ryan is proving to be a great campaigner. Now, I suppose here's where I name drop. I raised Paul Ryan. Well, I was half of the party that raised John Bennett and Joe Bennett, but I had something to do with Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan was at Empower America in the 90s. He was hired by Jack Kemp and me and Vin Weber and Gene Kirkpatrick, and he was a staff assistant. And he worked mainly with Jack, but he worked a lot with me. We hiked together in the Rockies. His family has Colorado connections. Paul and I hiked last summer in Buena Vista in the Collegiate Peaks. My other son, Joe Bennett, and I tried to talk him into running for president. He said no. Joe Bennett said, well, supposing they offer you the vice presidency. He said, I might do that. So lo and behold, that happened. I think it's a strong ticket, and I think it can win. I think it can win if it doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I think Romney is starting to get his stride. I think Ryan has made Romney a much better and stronger candidate. The choice of Ryan has also persuaded me that Romney is a strong, self-confident man. He picked a guy who will occasionally outshine him. I think that's what good CEOs do. I know as an academic, that's what a good department chairman does. You hire people who will be smarter than you are, and they will make you look good. I watched during the campaign trail as they were traveling through the northern Midwest. Don't lean on it. All right. Pitkin County sign, the podium, and then the speaker. Anyway, I won't lean. John is telling me not to lean. That's right. It's not a mountain, right? Right. I watched as they toured. Romney spoke and introduced Ryan to the crowd. Second event, Romney spoke and let Ryan say a couple of words. Third event, he shared the podium with Ryan. Last event, he let Ryan speak. That's confidence on Romney's part, and he was showing that he's got the confidence to pick somebody who will occasionally outshine him. I think it's a strong ticket. I think it can win. There are worries, though, serious worries. It is a very close election, particularly. Should I pause? Pause.
Did you hear about the University of Colorado?
I didn't know. All right. What? I won't lean on it. All right. Glad to have so much help here. I hope, I'm just going to make a few more remarks and we're going to open it up. Because you guys know a ton, and a lot of you know a lot more about particular subjects here than I do. So we'll just make this an open forum. Things that could happen that can dramatically affect this election. Mistakes, gaffes. Another representative, Aiken from Missouri. Israel attacks Iran. Lots of things could happen. The Obama campaign will continue to savage Romney Ryan. I spent most of the day today while Elaine was going to the summit once or twice, whatever, on the phone, defending Paul Ryan. Well, you're a mentor of Paul Ryan. He's a no government guy. He doesn't believe in government, right? He's an Ayn Rand guy, right? He's a guy, they're trying to paint Ryan as a very extreme right-wing guy. I was trying to explain to the Washington Post and the New Republic, you see my job, my duty. I do this so you don't have to. But they're trying to make a caricature of Paul Ryan and of course of Mitt Romney as well. Watch the states early on. If Pennsylvania goes Romney, Republicans win. If Virginia and North Carolina both don't go Romney, we lose. That's my sense. If we don't win Pennsylvania, Republicans, we can still win the election. But Pennsylvania closes, what, 6 or 7 early, right? And if Pennsylvania is a Romney state, I think the election is probably over. I think Romney will get better and better as the next couple of months go on. Frida, you'll be at Tampa, right? You'll do raincoat, maybe. And I think it's going to be a great convention. Watch the speakers. Look at the speakers who will be at the podium. This is a very different Republican Party. This is not a Southern Baptist party anymore. It includes Southern Baptists, and it has to keep Southern Baptists. But think of this ticket. This guy from Michigan, a guy from Wisconsin, a Catholic, a Mormon. Think of the people who will be speaking at the convention. Marco Rubio, Susana Martinez, the very athletic Chris Christie, other, whom we love. When you see that roster and see that lineup, you will see why this is a strong party, and I think getting stronger all the time. We have a tremendous bench, but we can't wait for that bench to mature. We have to win it, and we have to win it this time. The long run work still has to be done in our institutions, in our cultural institutions, in the media, in the universities, if they can be helped at all, but more important in the schools, the elementary schools, the middle schools, and the high schools, because that's where attitudes are formed and opinions are formed, and they are very important hothouses for what we think and believe and how we vote. It's been well said 1,000 times on Fox, and I will just repeat it. If the election is based on the facts and the economy, Republicans will win. If it's based on personality, and if it's based on who can better or more effectively or more intentionally negatively campaign, then the Democrats may very well win. They are not running on a record at all I mean, it's quite extraordinary. They're running on Mitt Romney's personality, or that Mitt Romney did this or that, or that these are extremists, or that the worst thing you can think about any Republican is what you can say about Romney and Ryan. That's how I see it. There's a lot more to say, and I will try to say it in response to your comments or questions, but that's how I view it from here. Thank you very much. Let's continue the discussion. Tell us about that Colorado poll, whoever was mentioning that. I'll repeat it.
It wasn't a poll. Perhaps many of you saw this. It was on Fox News a couple nights ago. The University of Colorado has some group that's been annually analyzing state-by-state economies and other data. I didn't get it all, but they have correctly predicted the presidential election for the last 32 years. They predicted that Mitt Romney would get 52.9% of the popular vote and would get 320 electoral votes and win the election.
Well,
But let's not get confident. We have to earn it and work for it, but that's what they predicted.
a lot of work. A lot of work is to be done, and you can see the media, the mainstream media, gearing up, and you can see where their biases are. You'll see the biases in the debates, as those presidential debates and that one vice presidential debate take place. Yes.
Judy Allen from Houston.
Yes, Judy.
I did come to
I'm going to repeat too.
I did come to the health information seminar that Frida referred to, and though the fellow was very good with lots of information, many of us still left confused about Medicare. I would like to suggest, since you have the ear of Paul Ryan, that you ask him perhaps to do something that I have found has been very effective in other places, a chart that says this is what we have now, this is what Obama is proposing, and these are the facts of what Romney-Ryan are proposing. Because the media will continually talk about $716 billion that's being taken out of Medicare, and the other side says,
Yeah.
oh, no, it's not.
Yeah. The
Thank you.
suggestion is that since I have the ear of Paul Ryan, I used to have the ear of Paul Ryan. One worries when you have, this kind of relationship with someone when they're young. I wrote to him the other day. I said, now don't do this to me. You remember Shakespeare, Henry IV, where yes, someone does. And Falstaff and Hal are very good friends. They drink a lot of beer together. I don't think they climb mountains. They go to war together. And Hal becomes king. There's a coronation parade. And Falstaff says to Master Shallow, watch, when he sees me, he'll say, Falstaff, my friend. Well, Hal's not Hal anymore. He's the king. And so when Falstaff yells out, prince, my boy, my lad, the king, Hal, turns to him and says, I know thee not, old man, fall to thy prayers. Tough line. And Falstaff turns to Master Shallow and says, I owe you 1,000 pounds. I said, Ryan, you do this to me in Tampa? He won't. The suggestion was that Paul Ryan get a chart, which is a very funny thing to say if you know Paul Ryan. He carries charts with him all the time. This is a guy who says, when they ask Paul, what do you like to do for relaxation? He says, I like to kick back with a beer and a couple of actuaries. I mean, charts is what he lives. If you watch him on TV in the hearings, he has charts. When he's on Meet the Press, he has charts. And in these speeches he's been giving since the nomination, or since he was selected, he is not using charts, but he is saying, we want a debate on Medicare. We will win a debate on Medicare. And the most important thing I think Ryan says is, we will have to make adjustments. But if you want to save Medicare, you've got to do something like what we're doing. And again, the Obama administration does not have a plan on Medicare. When Secretary Geithner came before Ryan's committee, the Budget Committee, Ryan said, what is your plan for the out years? And he said, well, we got 5, 6, 7 years. What about year 20? He said, well, we don't have anything for that. Ryan said, the reason you don't is because we won't have any money if we keep going this way. So we could not have a better person in this debate than Paul Ryan. Since he got in, a lot of people predicted that Florida would switch and go strong Democrat. It has not. And he's spending a lot of time in Florida. Thank you, Judy. Yes?
I'm Peggy Rogers.
Hi, Peggy.
Aspen, Colorado. I wonder if you can tell me, maybe it is happening and I'm not aware of it, but is there any way for some pressure to be brought to bear on the selection of the slate of moderators for the debates, which seems so radically biased?
You want to jump in at any point, Frida? I had Reince Priebus, the chairman of the Republican National Committee, on the moderators for the debates. We were talking about it at lunch today. I said, Reince, this is just terrible. I know some of the people on that commission, and here we go again. Jim Lehrer, Candy Crowley. I know Candy Crowley from CNN. She's a nice person. She's a liberal. She doesn't think she's a liberal, but she's a liberal. Lehrer's a liberal. He doesn't think he's a liberal. Liberals do not understand that they're liberals. Conservatives understand they're conservatives, but liberals have very little self-knowledge in this regard. Since you mentioned CNN, which I didn't ask you to, but you did, turn the audience against me. I didn't renew with Fox. The same reason we're going to Charlotte. I thought it'd be more interesting at CNN. They don't use me very much. But I said once with my friends Mike Gallagher and Sean Hannity in the room, I said, you know, any conservative can do Fox. You know, you're preaching to the choir. I said, I parachute in behind enemy lines twice a week to be on a panel of 19 people, you know, 18 of them were liberals. And Sean said, the smartest thing he ever said, he said, it's very courageous of you, Bill, and very anonymous. Nobody's watching. CNN. I hate the moderator selection. I think they should just be explicit. Don't have this phony notion of neutrality. September 11th, I will be in Dallas. I will be debating Chris Matthews. All right? I will do this all day and all week. So I'll be doing a lot this fall. Have Bill Bennett and Chris Matthews, or Michael Medved and Chris Matthews, or Sean and Rachel Maddow, or Rich Lowry and Rachel Maddow, if you saw Meet the Press last week. A liberal and a conservative. Alternate questions and just have it out. Don't have this phony posture that someone is speaking from these Olympian heights of neutrality. There are no such people. So I'm very upset about it. I told Reince. Reince said, we're not done with that. That's not over yet. I said, they're all announced, Reince. He said, we'll keep working it. I think we should say we're not going to do it unless we have something more reasonable. But I want to see Romney debate Obama. Whatever you think of Mitt Romney or thought of him before, he had a heck of a tough run in those debates. Those are smart people who he was arguing with. Newt Gingrich, Rick Santorum, and they came after him. He held up very well. I think they're better than Obama in debate. Now, Obama's a charmer, but he's not a debater. He's a very poor debater, actually. So I look forward to that. And to say I look forward to the Biden-Ryan debate. But you never know. You never know. I was a partisan of George W. Bush. I feared the Gore debates because I thought Gore was a really good debater because what he did to Ross Perot, and I worried about it. I thought we'd have another repeat of Jack Kemp and Al Gore, which was the worst hour of my life. But Bush won those debates because Gore acted like a perfect ass. He pompously walked around the podium, huffing and puffing, while Bush was answering the questions. And at one point, or was it Kerry, said, now you own a timber farm. Bush said, I do. And it was a natural, innocent, a guileless response to the over-rehearsed Kerry and the over-rehearsed Gore. So, but I think, I think Ryan is going to be very tough to beat in any debate. Do you want to say something about that? It's your business.
I agree with everything you said.
Oh, boy. For this fee, you should. Just kidding, just kidding. No fees, and never a fee from Republicans, never, never. I'd like to charge them for going to Charlotte, though.
We have so many,
Where are you? There you
Right
are.
here.
Yeah.
we have so many serious problems facing the
Yeah.
country that we don't seem to be addressing enough. How can we get the questions of abortion and gay rights and those issues that should not be coming out of our federal government or be handled by our
Well,
federal
whether you
government?
think they should be out of the federal government or not, they shouldn't be. The questions of abortion and gay rights, why are they dominating? They shouldn't be dominating because clearly, you know, if you want to win an election, look at what the people are worried about. They're worried about jobs. They're worried about the economy. They're worried about spending. They're worried about fiscal cliffs. They're worried about our standing in the world. And you know what else they're very worried about? They usually don't ask this question in polls, but when they do, it's right near the top. They're worried about their children and their grandchildren. Those things all wrap up into one. We have a friend in North Carolina who said to me, I used it on the radio, he said, I've done well, I'm successful. Can I write a check somewhere right now for my grandchildren so they don't have to suffer this burden? It was a very moving thing to say. I think a lot of people feel like that. The problems are very, very serious, and we got to get the debate back on track. Republicans are trying to do that. Democrats don't want it to go back. The media will help them not get back on track. They will try to keep making as much as they can out of this guy in Missouri, who I hope comes to his senses and steps down. But he has been almost unanimously condemned by Republicans, and that's an important thing. I don't know if all the talk of abortion and gay rights is, though, in the end, going to cut that deep, because people are really focused on the issues you talked about, I mentioned. I have a center-right audience. I have a lot of very conservative people who listen. I have a lot of Christian ministers who listen. When they call my show, it's the imagination of the left that all they talk about is these issues. They don't. They talk about the economy. They talk about jobs. They talk about security of the country, and they talk about their children and their grandchildren. So I think we'll see what the moderators do, but let's listen this next week. And I think you have a lineup of speakers as good as any we have ever seen, and different and new and interesting people. Yes.
At the American Enterprise Institute 2 weeks ago, they had two people who were review polls, and one of the questions that they went over from about 20 or 25 years ago, they said if there was a competent Mormon, would you vote for him? And only 27% said no. Then they asked the same question recently, 2 years ago, and the answer was 27% said no. Could you give us a little background on why Christians don't like Mormons?
Why? No. Why do Christians not like Mormons?
Why won't they vote for him?
They will. Look, this audience of mine, again, a lot of very conservative people, a lot of very conservative Christians. People said, look, I have problems with his views on the Trinity or this, that, the other thing. And people during the primaries were raising questions. It's virtually unanimous in my audience. I got one guy in Michigan who's holding out, and I can't say his name anymore because people want to go to his house and throttle him. I can't vote for Romney. It's the Trinitarian thing. He's the only guy in the country left, I think. I don't know. I hope so. But I think people will. Look, quite apart from religious differences, you know, the plane is in a nosedive. Pick your angle depending on your analysis of the country. Anybody here know how to fly a plane? Yeah, but he's a Mormon. Come on. Oh, no, no, no. No, no, I'm not going to have a Mormon save my kids. No, no, no. So, reality, you know, at the end of the day, reality sinks in. And I think, you know, if the reality of these facts sinks in, we're fine. And I think, by the way, one fabulous thing about Mitt Romney is Ann Romney, good friend of Elaine Bennett's and you all. She's going to give a speech Tuesday night now, prime time. Yes, sir.
Bill, I wonder if you could talk about Romney's brain trust. You don't hear anything about it. And is there a Karl Rove in the background? And is that a weakness? I don't know.
The brain trust, is there a Karl Rove in the background? Karl Rove is in the background. He's running that. Was it a PAC? The PAC. He's got a ton. It's a huge campaign. A lot of people. I've never seen so many advanced people since the White House. It's a very good group of people. I don't know all of them intimately. I know Schriefer. I know Vin Weber very well. He was part of our group at Empower America. I know a lot of the communications people, and I think they're very strong. But remember, this is one very smart guy. You know, this guy was #1 in his class at Brigham Young, near the top of his class at Harvard Business School. He's run a few companies. I love, what is it that Hugh Hewitt says about Mitt Romney? Incandescently bright. Incandescently bright. He is, too. And some of you have had a chance to meet him and talk to him. He's fast, fast, fast. And he's an administrator. And he's a get things done guy. And I think he's going to be a great president.
How do you view the what seems to be the fact that over the decades, more and more Americans have become recipients of entitlements to the point where I think one could argue that perhaps even a majority of the country, forget Medicare, are either have benefited from Obama, either in unemployment, all types of programs, and I worry that the people are just going to say, hey, Republicans are going to take this away. The Democrats are going to keep it going.
How did we become an entitlement society and Republicans are going to take it away? That's the threat. That's the question, how we get there. Charles Murray's the guy to read on this. And way back when the Aspen Institute was running an affirmative action program for conservatives, and I was invited to co-chair a seminar. I did, and Bill Bradley was the Democrat. He had 11 members. Elaine will remember this. I had 2. I got two people. I chose Charles Murray and Dennis Prager, and we won. And I didn't say anything. Good thing. But Murray on the Entitlement Society. We expanded the notion of rights. We expanded the notion of entitlements. And out of a perhaps well-intentioned notion of helping those who needed help, we expanded the role of government. What we ended up doing was enervating personal responsibility, personal energy, personal ambition with the growth of the welfare state. The American people, I think, are still of the view, as our friend Arthur Brooks, Arthur had not been here, says, that what matters in life is earned success. Earned success. And they believe in it. But I think they believe in it about 58-42. And we have to increase those numbers. Because if you talk to people, you will see there is a sense of entitlement. If you take a woman who will speak at the convention in Charlotte, Sandra Fluke, she will say that she is entitled to contraception paid for by other people. So she can be as active as she wants to be, and we have to pay for it. I just think that's, quite apart from bizarre, it's a nutty notion. I'm not going to call any names. It's a nutty notion of government and of individual freedom and responsibility. There's a story in the Book of Virtues called The Choice of Hercules, and very old story. Try reading it to a child or a grandchild. Hercules is given a choice of 2 paths. One goes through a very difficult place, forest, horrible creatures. He has to fight his way through. Finally, if he makes it, he gets to the sunlit plains, and if he does get there, he is stronger and better and knows himself better. The other one is all wine and honey and beautiful, kind of Aspen, just like, everything is beautiful. I'm kidding. Everything is beautiful here, though. And if he gets through, which everybody does, he's got nothing to show. No accomplishment, no overcoming any challenge. The moral of the story is obvious. It's a St. Paul moral. It's a moral of most faiths. What doesn't destroy us makes us stronger. When we fail, we reflect about our failures. When we succeed against failure, that's when we have that earned self-respect. Read it to children and grandchildren. see what they think, and ask them which path they take. I'll bet you over the last 50 years, you'd get a different response. This is the function of the schools, the media, the culture. That's why it's so important. But I think Americans still believe in it. And the reason I do is if you watch not the mistakes the president makes in his speeches, but when he corrects them, he comes back to that American notion. When he talked about America, you know, a lot of countries are great. And he said, oh, but this is the greatest in the follow-up speech. That faith is still there, but it's fragile. It's fragile.
I was saddened this morning to see that in the recent polls, Missouri now has a 1 point, Romney has a one, I should say Obama has a 1 point lead over Romney in Missouri. Do you see any chance in the world that the party can basically force this Aiken out of this race?
I believe he'll get out because I believe in addition to some, I'm sorry, can the party force him out? The party can't force him out, but they're doing everything they can. Who was it? One of my colleagues in talk radio recommended kidnapping the other day. I don't know if it'll come to it, but it seems to me an extreme act of self-indulgence on his part. And then his explanation, well, I made a grammatical mistake. You didn't make a grammatical mistake. You had a whole architecture of a theory, which was wacko, and you said it out loud. Anyway, sooner or later, someone will prevail on him. One hopes for his minister, or his wife, or his kids, or something. I don't think we win Missouri. And we don't win that Senate seat, which was a gimme. And that means the Senate, getting control of the Senate back is in serious jeopardy. So if I had to predict, I predict he'll be out, but it'll be a while, and it probably won't be till after the Democrat convention. Count how many times the name Aiken is said in Charlotte as embodying the Republican Party.
Hi, Emily Smith from Jacksonville,
Hello, Emily.
Florida, and
Hi.
Aspen, Colorado.
Hi.
We're delighted to have you here. It seems like to me that the only real social security that we can have in this country is, aside from faith, is a first-tier education for every student. How do we make students into scholars in each community, bringing it down to the grassroots level?
How do we make students into scholars? Our real security lies in education. I think you're right. Basically, life is William James said, life's a race between education and catastrophe. I don't even need scholars. I just want competence. I just want people who can read and write and count and think. Do you know that 65% of our juniors cannot turn 65% into a fraction? Now, 65% is already a fraction. You know, you just got to look at what that percent is. That's 65 hundredths. That's not scholar. This is basic survival in a competitive world. And would it be good for them to know when they say, we have so much to learn from Europe, and we need to listen to the Europeans, for them to know something about how much Europe has needed America and the United States of America, and the soldiers of the United States of America, because they don't know any history. That's our worst subject. Did you know that's our worst subject? So I would just go for basic competence. The way we get this is by, and I say this as a conservative Republican, this party has to take this issue much more seriously, has to be much more engaged, and we have to give awards to people who run for school board. As a Catholic, I can tell you, if you serve on a school board, you will not go to purgatory, because you will have already been there. You want to know where in our society the rubber hits the road? School board meetings. You talk about sex education. You talk about, are we doing social studies or history? What books are we buying? Are we having a dance? Are there any rules about the dance? All of these kind of hard questions that determine what a culture is. School boards, a lot of them have to deal with them. So at a political level, school choice, charter schools, higher standards for curriculum, state assessments. I'm a core curriculum person if people agree to the core, and I like what a lot of the states have done on the core, and reasonable assessment and testing. Not a lot A lot of testing, but better tests. So yes, it's a big part of the ballgame in the future. Thank you. Know anybody?
I'm Madeline
Yeah.
Larson
Hi.
from Aspen. I'm originally from Wisconsin.
Good for
I
you.
wanted, yeah, Governor Walker, and we have really a whole bunch of Republicans now in Wisconsin, Wisconsin used to be liberal. Anyway, I want to ask, how do we avoid this election, the Chicago type of voting? Because they cheat, they lie, they vote often, and they vote dead. And in Wisconsin, they say they were 119% of the Democrats voted.
Yeah, it's good
You
numbers.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that
It's
good numbers?
turnout. Yeah, how do we prevent voter fraud? And the question is, how do we prevent it?
Governor Walker got 61%
Yeah,
still.
Yeah, 119% of Democrats voted.
And the
It's
reason
very good.
why-
The same
sorry.
people who can't do the 65% into a fraction. by the way.
And I want to say something. The reason why we won, I mean, we worked very hard, my whole family, my family business is there, is because the people rose up and rebelled.
Yeah.
And people rose up and stand on their feet and said, we don't want that kind of government anymore.
You had Scott out, didn't you? Everybody comes. They just don't turn you down, Frida, you know? Well, the question was about Wisconsin, and I don't know about you, but I held my breath during that whole recall thing. I thought it was so important. And he is such a great guy. And, you know, Walker and Ryan, my son John and I were at the Republican Governors Association meeting. It was very funny. I moderated a panel of governors, and it was Haley Barbour and Chris Christie and Tim Paulini and Bobby Jindal. And I was in the middle, and we came out in the order of Haley Barbour, Chris Christie, and Bill Bennett. And Haley said, "Is this a panel or is this the Packers sweep?" And I said, of a losing Packers season, it's a Packers sweep. But anyway, the elevator door opens, and you know, there are all these new people. Scott Walker steps out and says, "Mr. Bennett, my name is Scott Walker. I'm the new governor of Wisconsin." And I said, I always say something inappropriate when I'm lost for words. I even say it when I'm not at a loss for words. I said, "What are you trying to do, become the next Texas?" And he said, "Yes, we are, in a way. Yes, we are, in our own way." I mean, it's done remarkable what he's done. Very serious question. I think the courts will uphold these IDs. It's ridiculous that they don't. You need IDs for everything. This is the most important thing. People I know who watch this sort of thing, who are professional students of this, tell me there will be some, there's always some, but it won't be in great abundance because of the checks in most places. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I know I salute Rick Scott in Florida, who's gone very far on this. He came on my show to announce what he was going to do, and he won with the Justice Department the right to get the database. So we'll hope for the best.
Bud
Yes.
Mulcahy, Arlington, Texas.
Yes, sir.
How's the race for the Senate shaping up?
Which one? Oh, you mean the whole Senate, or you mean
The whole
Texas?
Senate, yeah.
Your guy will win. Ted will win. Don't you think Ted Cruz will win? The race for the Senate, it's tough. I mean, we got to win Missouri. The ones I'm watching that I'm interested in are Massachusetts, with Scott Brown and Elizabeth Warren, and I'll pass. I was going to say something. I won't. No. And Catholic Church teaches that you should, if you have a bad thought, don't indulge it. So I'll just let it go by. But Scott Brown is a very attractive guy. He's not my kind of conservative, but he's from Massachusetts. What's a guy going to do? And I think he'll win. Some of the ones I'm watching, very interested in, are Ohio, which of course is crucial for Republicans. They don't win presidency unless they win Ohio. Where Elaine and I went to a luncheon for Josh Mandel, the Jewish Marine, as he's referred to. We got a soft place in our hearts for him because our other son is a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. Thank you. And he is even with Sherrod Brown. Ted Cruz will win in Texas. That's Texas. You know, I had Rick Perry on my show. I said, you know, supposing we lose. Supposing we lose this election, and we all decide, like Alec Baldwin, we're going to leave the country. We're just, gosh, last thing in my mind I'd ever want to do. We want to leave the country. What should we do? Perry didn't exactly listen to the question. He said, just come to Texas, you know. God love them. Nebraska, I think, looks pretty good. Montana, yes, I think Montana looks pretty good. I made a list. Indiana, I think that's a win. Virginia is neck and neck. George Allen and Tim Kaine. Connecticut, Linda McMahon, the wrestling lady. She's not a wrestler. I mean, she made a lot of money. She and her husband in wrestling. But at last poll I saw, she was up 3 or 4 points. So remarkable things could happen. I think there's a real good shot at the Senate. I think Republicans will hold the House, and a lot of my heroes will be back in the House. We're going to lose one of my heroes, one of the greatest.
Wisconsin, how does that look?
Wisconsin, I think that looks good. Tommy Thompson will beat Tammy Baldwin, I think. But one of my heroes is leaving the Senate. Great man of the Senate, John Kyle. Really great man. Great man. Who? Can't hear you. Flake. I don't know. I think that's a tough one. Floyd Flake in Arizona. I don't know. But I talked to Ted Cruz in Texas. He came on the radio show. The morning he won, he came on my show. And he said, there's a breath of fresh air in America. Things are changing. We're getting back to basic values. We're getting back to basic principles. We're getting back to the right things, and we're going to be just fine. I said, you know, I used to teach philosophy. There's an expression in philosophy called don't cosmologize your own idiosyncrasies. I said, everything you just said is about Texas. I said, I hope it's true about the United States of America. No, he said, small government, limited government, self-reliance. I said, Texas. Try that in, Massachusetts, whatever, California. Try that in Sacramento. What's going to happen there, by the way? Is that just going to melt? Peter, does that melt? California, Peter said yes, a few years. I thought the best line of the year, joke line of the year, was after the, not of the year, it was 2010 elections, after the Tea Party and all that, and these changes in state legislatures. And California just went back to Jerry Brown. And the Wall Street Journal editorialist, the lady you like, Kimberly Strassel, said, every state seems to finally be learning, except California. It's the Lindsay Lohan of states, They just can't figure it out. Oh, I shouldn't do that. Okay, yeah, all right. You mean if you keep spending? Okay, yeah, if you keep spending. I don't mean to make light of these things. It's just, you have to keep a sense of humor and balance about it. And one of the great things about Mitt Romney, if I may say other things, apart from the brilliance, I love that disposition. I love that sunny demeanor. I'm a Reagan guy. I'm a Reagan baby. I worked for Ronald Reagan. He was my boss. He hired me. My first 2 jobs with Ronald Reagan. And no matter what was going on, he had a smile. It was morning in America. And when Romney hits that podium, it just makes you feel better. And Ryan does too. Do you know Ryan hunts elk with the bow and arrow in Colorado? I said, how do you do that? He said, we got to run with the herd for a while. I said, what do you mean run with the herd? We had an expression like that in a fraternity, but it wasn't. He runs with an elk herd, he said, and then you jump out in front with your bow and arrow and you get a shot, and usually you get just 1 shot. I said, do you then get out of the way? I mean, but he's a fitness nut. Last year in Buena Vista, when we were hiking, it was Paul and his father-in-law who runs marathons at 64, and his brother-in-law who's an Ironman athlete, and his brother, the Marine, and we went up Mount Chavano. And Paul said, let's all stay together. I said, let's not. And Paul said, no, come on, it's family. I said, right. Your family, my son, I'll see you later. Anyway, then I waved goodbye. Yes, please.
Secretary Bennett.
Yes.
In the last week, Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum have been classy enough to release their delegates. But Ron Paul still has the control of the Nevada, Maine, some of Minnesota. And at the Texas Republican Convention, the Ron Paul people created quite a disturbance. What do you think will happen next week?
I'm going to defer that to Frida. What I hear from people about this Ron Paul, what's going to happen with the Ron Paul people, I think they're going to be fine, because I think he's going to be fine. I think he's a voice of maturity, and I think his son is a better voice of maturity. And I think they'll figure that out, Frida.
Well, I'm not sure I know the answer to the question as phrased, but Colorado has a very strong element in our delegation of Ron Paul supporters. They and the Rick Santorum people got together and basically took over the delegation right after the delegates were chosen, but that coalition is splintering. So I expect that Colorado will be strongly for Romney in our delegation. But it's unclear what the Ron Paul people are going to do on the sidelines. And but I think that in the end they won't be a factor. But they'll get a lot of press attention.
Yeah. What do you think?
Maybe 2 more questions?
2 more, and I'll trade a book for a handkerchief. I'll trade a clean book for a
I
clean
know.
handkerchief. I only write clean books.
You got one.
Thank you. Choose your book.
Mr. Secretary, as you started your comments with the, shall we say, the shortcoming of education in regards to the fact it's still very liberal, as parents with 2 kids in colleges, how do how do we look forward in America, and how do we deal with the union issue to get colleges and the whole teaching system back to a more conservative or middle base?
Great. It's a question about education, how we get it back to doing the right things. I said the universities will be the last to go on this. John Bennett went to Princeton University, great university, expensive university. 100% of the faculty gave to the Democratic Party, except for Robbie George, the great Robbie George. And that's it. You go to Seattle, it's going to rain. You go to the universities, this is what you're going to get. There are some conservative places, as you know. We had a sponsor on the show, Hillsdale. There are places like Princeton where it's really not 100% because thanks to Steve Forbes and maybe some of you, there's the James Madison Center. That was called the Madison Center. And there are half a dozen conservative people at the university. I got a call from Mike Rosen. You all know who Mike Rosen is? Talk show host in Denver. He said, somebody's putting up money to hire a conservative professor. Think of how ridiculous this sentence is, at the University of Colorado. Now, how big is the University of Colorado? It's got to have 1 million people, right? 1,000 faculty. And so with this announcement, the faculty senate passed a resolution. Well, we want someone else to put up money to hire a liberal professor. Well, no, you've already got 9,000. Anyway, you can educate people in the United States of America. Our boys got through Princeton, and they're as conservative as I am. Not as conservative as Mrs. Bennett is. But she's, anyway, no. We're all pretty conservative. Because of home, because of reading lists, because of other influences. But look, things could change. The union power is on the wane. It really is. And if there's a saint in this, it's Saint Scott, Saint Walker of Wisconsin. I've been at this for 40 years. Hollywood made a movie, Waiting for Superman. It was a school choice movie. It was about parents, moms and dads, minority moms and dads, standing in line, taking buses to get education for their children. They are making a regular Hollywood movie. What do you call that? A movie, not a documentary. Same theme, about a black mom who wants to have her daughter in a good school, and they keep sending her to these terrible schools. It's on the wane. That's a good thing. Watch technology in higher education. John Bennett and I went out and visited with Sebastian Thrun. He teaches robotics and artificial intelligence at Stanford. He invented the driverless car, which since I think a lot about teenagers, I'm totally in favor of. He also makes robots and things. He put his course on artificial intelligence online. You read about this in the Wall Street Journal. 20,000 people signed up, then 114,000 people took it worldwide. Every country in the world had people taking that course except North Korea. What a bunch of dopes. Anyway, and here's an interesting thing. He had 200 Stanford graduate students in this course. 150 of them dropped the course to take it online. I mean, do you have any kids? This is what kids, they feel more connected with the online course. And they're not distracted. We heard last night, someone well-informed told us kids are distracted by the professor or maybe something else in the classroom, but not when they're online. And they help each other more when it's online. The other interesting thing was it was 213 before a Stanford student showed up in the top scores in the final exam. Nothing against Stanford, brilliant people, but there are brilliant people anywhere. Technology could change the captive nature of higher ed. Your kid's in there and your kid signs up for business or philosophy or anthropology and has to sit through propaganda 50% of the time. Not if that child isn't captive at that place. And we're going to see more and more of this. So technology can be a liberating, very liberating phenomenon. It can happen at elementary and secondary level as well, obviously. Yeah, one more.
I'd like to posit some contrarian thinking, perhaps wishful.
Contrarian view?
Well,
sure.
Wishful thinking.
Sure.
I can't remember exactly when it was, but there was a former senator from Minnesota who died in an airplane crash, and at his funeral, the Democrats went crazy, and it caused, do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was...
who was it?
Was it?
Wellstone, right. So,
Paul Wellstone.
So the contrarian thought was that at the Democrat convention, if they really go overboard on this abortion stuff and try to paint Republicans in such an extreme way, do they risk the same thing happening, especially when you consider, I think you would know, but I think the polls show that Americans are trending more pro-life.
Yes. Americans are trending pro-life. In most elections, pro-life defeats pro-choice. But if you're after the middle, the party that pays the price is the party that makes the biggest deal out of it when people want to talk about something else. I'm pro-life, strongly pro-life. So is Mitt Romney. Paul Ryan is more pro-life than Mitt Romney. But they're not talking about it. They prefer not to talk about it. If the Democrats make too much out of it and start forcing the issue on people, I think people will turn off from it. Yes, I think there's a very good chance of that. You can talk about these issues, but as everybody in this room knows, if you talk about these issues, you better talk about them well and carefully and and deliberately. But that's not where the mind of the country is now. So when I heard that the Democrats had changed their roster and have Barbara Mikulski speaking 10 times or something, our senator, Maryland, God help us. No, she's not, but it's Barbara Mikulski and Sandra Fluke and on it goes. If they overplay this, I think Democrats could hurt themselves, and that's a very real possibility. Because again, it's not what people want to talk about right now. First, save the country from ruin, and then let's talk about everything else that's important too. Thank you all very much. Thank you. I'm going to get you wet. Fun.